You know, David Zaslav continuing to be Warner Bros. CEO honestly makes about as much sense to me as attempting to go mine detecting in Ukraine with nothing but a hammer. Yes everybody, this week we are finally getting the release of Coyote vs Acme. I'm of course super excited for this film, but today I want to talk about the story behind this film, its development, the people who made it, and of course its controversial cancellation. And to do so, we're going to have to start off by going back in time.
Fascinating.
Back in time to the good old days of the bad old days. We have to go back to the 20th century.
I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
Now of course, the 20th century was a busy time for humanity, what with us having to fight 2 world wars, a global depression, and of course the rise of Justin Bieber. But still, within that time there were a few saving graces, as art in this time period was able to develop and flourish. The time period saw the rise and fall of many great names in animation like Disney and the Fleischer Brothers. Of course in a host to a whole lot of other names that I'm not even going to talk about today. And it was these artists, animators and studios that gave us some of animation's most iconic characters and worlds. With of course one of those particular groups being the Looney Tunes. Now, ever since their initial debut, the Looney Tunes have always been a cast of characters that audiences have always received really well. Now, the group's initial animated shorts that played before films back in the earlier 20th century were something that truly pushed the boundaries of what could be done with animation at the time. The shorts were weird, creative, and outlandishly funny, and so it's no wonder that audiences all across the world fell in love with these characters and their world. So much so that the characters have been constantly revisited time after time across a variety of different iterations over the decades. And yes, time after time, iteration after iteration, audiences have constantly responded with love and care for these characters. I mean, hell, look, the Lunatics Unleashed even managed to find an audience eventually.
You serious?
So yes, the Looney Tunes have always managed to find some sort of success with their individual animated shorts and series. However, when it comes to their attempts at film on the other hand, their efforts have usually always been met with mixed receptions.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
A number of their initial films were just collages of original animated shorts from the early 20th century. Which isn't to say that those films were bad or anything, it's just not what many people expect when they hear of a Looney Tunes film. But still, it does make sense when you consider that at the time, the intent with these films wasn't to present audiences with some sort of new Looney Tunes story, but to instead give them a place where they could have a variety of different animated shorts all collated in one place, like on a VHS or DVD. And that was the trend for the longest time until, of course, the early 2000s, when we got the often harshly treated Looney Tunes Back in Action movie. And of course, that movie will deserve a video all of its own one day in the future, because of course, even back when that movie was being made, there was an entire pissing contest behind the scenes between the movie's creator and Warner Bros. So yes, whilst one trend was broken, unfortunately, another, even worse, was just beginning. And yes, before we go any further, I know that there are going to be a whole bunch of people in the comments screaming at me saying that I've forgotten something. With that unfortunate thing having to be Space Jam. And yes, Space Jam is a movie that exists. Is it a Looney Tunes movie? No. Is it a Michael Jordan vanity piece wearing the corpse of a Looney Tunes film? Yes. And so really just to spare everybody the horror, I'm going to just move on. Now of course, when it comes to the development of anything, a large number of people is typically involved, especially when it's an animated film with a large budget. So yes, when you look at the development of anything today, especially a Hollywood animated film, you will see why a large number of people are involved. And because of the millions involved in the development of that film, you will of course think that many people will of course do whatever they have to ensure that the film is a success. And you would be wrong. Because people are people, with their own ideas, their own objectives, and of course, their own egos. And nowhere else on earth can this be more blatantly seen than in Hollywood, where with there being so much money on the line, people are naturally inclined to compete with one another. And this naturally brings us to David Zaslav. Yes, we're almost there, we'll get to Coyote vs. Acme in a minute.
Hello, I like money.
Okay, so for those who are unaware, David Zaslav is unfortunately the CEO of Warner Bros. Entertainment. Now, honestly, when it comes to a man like David Zaslav, there is an entire essay that could be put together on what he has done throughout his life. But really, what we're interested in today is his work as it attains to him being the CEO of Warner Bros. Entertainment. Back in May of 2021, it was announced that Zaslav would serve as the CEO of the newly merged Warner Bros. Discovery. The $43 billion deal was closed on April 8th and left Zaslav with a $3 million pay package. And if you're thinking, hey, that seems a little low, don't worry, because of course he got a $22 billion annual bonus. Or of course, if you're also thinking, fuck me, that's a lot of money to give to a big old fat man who never really does much, you would unfortunately be wrong, because he does do stuff. He does stuff like cancel movies that are in development for no real reason. But we'll get to that in a moment. Now, of course, there were a number of actual achievements made under Zaslav's tenure as CEO of Warner Discovery, with, for example, one of those things being the launch of the streaming service Max. But really, when it comes to his tenure as CEO of Warner Discovery, David Zaslav is more well known for his cancellation of various different films and series. Some of the films he's most commonly attributed for cancelling have to, of course, be Coyote vs. Acme, the Batgirl film, and Scoob Holiday Haunt. But those are just some of the films he's cancelled. During his tenure as CEO, a whole swathe of different series were also cancelled. And some of these include Final Space, Tig and Seek, Elliot from Earth, The Nevers, Infinity Train, Summer Camp Island, The Fungies, Close Enough, Westworld, and The Not Too Late Show with Elmo. And yes, a lot of these were Cartoon Network and Adult Swim titles, which were mostly all just written off as tax off and effectively became lost media. And yes, I have spoken a lot in the past as to just how much it costs to develop an animated series. And yes, back when these films and series were initially cancelled, many people commonly attributed the reason for the cancellation having to do with budgetary reasons. As for the last decade or so now, Warner Bros. Has, well, struggled with a lot of its finances. That, in addition to the large costs of developing these films and series, led many people to truly believe that that was the reason for their cancellation. And it at the time was a conclusion that the studio actually supported. However, at the same time that this argument was being put out, Warner Discovery was still of course paying David Zaslav his annual $22 million bonus, with Zaslav at the time commenting that it actually took real guts to go out and cancel all of those different films and shows. Which I guess kind of makes sense with what was happening with Warner Discovery at the time, what with it being a sinking ship financially, but of course, David Zaslav was the captain of that ship at the time.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
And finally, this brings us to Coyote vs. Acme. Yep, we're only 8 minutes in, and we're finally at Coyote vs. Acme. Alright, let's get right into it. Okay, so way back in 2018, Coyote vs. Acme first entered development. The film was directed by Dave Green, the screenplay was written by Sammy Birch, and the story was by James Gunn, Jeremy Slater, and Sammy Birch. The film was produced by the Warner Animation Group, Keylight Pictures, and James Gunn's own production company called Troll Court Entertainment. And thankfully, at the same time that James Gunn joined the project, other actors that he'd previously worked with, like John Cena, also joined the project. The film was written in the years between 2018 and 2019, and casting began in 2022. From 2018, the film was worked on for maybe 4 or 5 years, until in 2023, it was cancelled. Yes, despite the film looking as if it were coming along really quite well, and everybody involved having nothing but good things to say about it, the film was unfortunately cancelled in November of 2023. Just like another Looney Tunes movie, The Looney Tunes The Day the Earth Blew Up, the film was cancelled to obtain a tax write-off and eventually shelved. And yes, despite the decision to cancel the film actually damaging the careers of many of the people involved with making the movie, David Zaslav did then get up on a stage and make the whole thing about himself, taking credit for cancelling the film, saying that it took real guts to make that decision. Now, did it also take as much guts to take millions and millions and millions of dollars from a financially struggling studio? Well, we can only guess. Still though, thankfully the news of this cancellation was met with a rather negative response, which thankfully for this movie and Looney Tunes The Day the Earth Blew Up led to the decision of the movie's shelvings being reversed. And it was this decision that opened up the gates for the newcomer Ketchup Entertainment to come in and acquire the rights for both movies at millions less than the movies were developed for. And yes, The Day the Earth Blew Up was released back in 2024, with it being an eventual success. And now finally, this week, Coyote vs. Acme is releasing in cinemas. Reviews for the film are already out, and they are nothing but positive, and something that I am truly looking forward to. Really, Coyote vs. Acme is more than just another animation, live-action hybrid film. And honestly, the Coyote vs. Acme has probably the best film poster that I've seen in quite a long time. Not because it looks the coolest or is full of more annoying celebrity faces than you can count, but instead just because it fantastically embodies the story of not only the film, but the story behind the film's development. A Sisyphean-like image where the coyote is stuck pushing a bomb up a hill, just as he and the creators behind this film have been cursed to do for the last few years now. But finally, and thankfully, this movie is now releasing in cinemas. And honestly, with everything I've heard about the film, I cannot wait to see it myself. But what about you? Are you excited for Coyote vs. Acme? Please, if you are, leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Also please, don't forget to do all the other usual YouTube stuff. Like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.